welcome after some major technical difficulties, Mark. After take 3 and take 4 and take 5, and Jinky's Chinwags, our lovely train going past.
It's live.
Which is
it's
on
great.
its way to Largs. So it's great to have you here in the attic, and you've been with me. First of all, welcome, Mark. It's great to be speaking to you, but more importantly, and then we've been speaking about this for a couple of days.
Yes,
please tell us the proper pronunciation of your name.
Mark Brzezicki.
Brzezicki.
Yeah.
So that's lovely. That's a lovely Polish name.
Polish name.
Yeah. And now that's kind of where I want to start.
Okay.
I want to take you back just to where I think is maybe at a time in your life that you would be beginning to discover who you are as a person. And can I take you, I mean, I kind of roughly want to take you back to maybe you're 10 or 11. Could you share with me who's in your home at 10 and 11? Who's with you?
Gosh, I was at home with my brothers and sisters and mum and dad. You know, I've got two brothers and 2 sisters. I'm the middle one. Older brother, older sister, younger brother, younger sister. So I'm kind of the typical middle child.
Right. So do you mind me asking you your brothers and sisters' names?
There's Tony, who's my oldest one.
Yeah.
Then there's my older sister, Frances.
Yeah.
And then there's Stephen.
Yeah.
Who's just be below me. And then Janina or Janina.
Oh, Janina,
yeah.
And then there's your mum and dad, of course.
Mum and dad at that time.
Mum's first name?
Is Kathleen.
Kathleen, and your dad's?
Peter or Piotr.
Peter. So you're all in a house.
Yeah.
And you can tell me a wee bit of your background. You can tell me in any detail that you like. But I know from knowing you a few years that your father was a Polish man. Can you give us a wee insight into, first of all, how your mum and dad met? How does a man from Poland?
Is
your mum English?
My mum's English,
right,
yeah.
So,
but she gosh, it's a long story. I won't do the whole story, but my father ended up being liberated from the war because he was actually in a prisoner of war camp in Hungary, and he escaped from there and then walked from Hungary to France, where he met the French resistance, who handed him over to the Polish resistance, and because he had an engineering background, he was immediately drafted into the Polish Air Force, and he was flown out of that complete mayhem that he endured to England, to Northolt, which is just next to South or west of London. And my father had a great interest in singing. He was an opera singer in his private life and what he was trying to achieve personally with himself, and was taught by I can't remember the teacher, but he was Herbert Cesare was one of the teachers, I think, in Italy. But he wanted to keep his singing up as an opera singer. And so he joined the local church, more so to join the choir, and then he met my mum, who was in the choir as well at church in a town called Southall.
Yeah.
And then it kind of went from there. He was intending to go and live in Colorado, but he met my mum, and London Airport, as it was called back in the day, it became Heathrow later, but London Airport was what it was called. And as the war finished and the RAF were decommissioning and demobbing, there was job vacancies at BOAC, British Overseas Airways Corporation, which was not far from where he had his little flat where he was dating my mum in Southall, and decided to buy a house locally in Langley between Windsor and Slough,
right,
which is where I would be and where I grew up.
So he meets your mum. Where does he meet your mum?
In the choir in church in Southall, yeah.
Right, and so, I mean, we've kind of brushed over a little bit. Well, brushed over an awful lot of it because you and I have spoke in more detail about your father and an incredible tale.
Yeah.
Your dad's life, phenomenal tale. And in actual fact, maybe a film in itself, a movie in itself.
Yeah, it's when you peel back and reveal more of the story, and it could be a movie,
Yeah.
And but he had a lot of hardship. He was an orphan, and was brought up in an early age in a convent with nuns, and then when he was 5 years old, went to a monastery, and then he was worked for a family after that, and then kind of escaped from the family, and then found his way himself, just in the Polish resistance, and then getting captured and being put in prisoner of war camp, and then escaping under the wire.
Yeah.
One evening he had so he told me, like a poisoned sausage for the dog, and they smothered themselves in paraffin because that would evade the dog finding your trail. And then him and Alex, who was the guy who escaped with, apparently, it was Alex, remember, they walked from Hungary avoiding, hiding, and avoiding the Nazis at the time, until he was in France, where he found the French resistance, who found him into the Polish resistance. I mean, there's probably lots of the bits of story missing, but generally that's how he then got to England.
Yeah.
And as he said, that coming to England, it liberated him. It was a life-changing thing.
Yeah.
When he got on that flight and he was in the Polish Air Force.
Right.
The very revered 303 squadron as well that's over there. He was a Merlin engine specialist, my father. So he worked on the Lancasters and the Hurricanes and the Spitfires, who all shared the same engine. And it led to my great interest in aircraft. And I did an aircraft engineering course before I went as a full-time musician.
Because of that? Because
I was near Heathrow. I was very close to my father. He was, he was incredibly knowledgeable about aircraft, and I was always fascinated about aeroplanes because they were something you see, but I never saw one close up until I went to the airport when my father took me in. And I'm going to connect this with music because I had the same excitement. You see these aircraft in the sky, they're tiny. Well, they're pretty big where I live because I'm right near Heathrow. But when you see them on the ground close up, you never see them on the ground normally. They're always in the air.
Yeah.
And when I saw them, when my father took me to work one day, and then I saw them and I realised how big they were in real life, and the excitement that gave me was the same excitement I had when I'd seen drum kits on the television, and I'd only seen a drum kit and never seen one in real life. I'd only seen them on the television, and then I walked past a shop that had a small drum kit in the window, and it stopped me in my tracks, and I had the same excitement where I was seeing something I'd only seen on the television close up in front of me, and I just thought I would love to see what that sounds like, you know. And I'm digressing slightly because it then leads me to tell you that my first drum kit was my brother bought a guitar, Tony, my oldest brother.
Yeah.
My brother that's younger than me bought a bass guitar. My sister's a children's entertainer, and so we're kind of like a bit of a circus, our family.
So Tony's the first to arrive.
Yeah, Tony's the first to arrive.
So Tony is. So Tony comes on the scene, and so that we just get an essence of the picture. Peter marries
Kathleen. Yeah.
Kathleen, who's from Irish descent.
Yeah, got Irish descent.
And
Kathleen Lucas was her surname. Yeah.
So she's in London, and Peter meets this wonderful woman. They have a fantastic first baby. They have Tony, and then and next in line is who?
It's Frances, my sister.
Frances.
Yeah.
So Tony arrives and Frances arrives. Now, before we get to this really interesting drum kit, and before we get to Tony buying the guitar and Francis, inevitably, it all seems inevitably you were all going to be involved in music, even from that early age. But the reason for that is your dad's a singer.
Yeah,
that's not the reason.
No,
but that's
my dad. We always had a piano.
Yeah.
My dad insisted on a family must have a piano. There must be a basis of music. So we had a piano, so we were always able to dabble on the piano.
Yeah.
And my father also used that to do his vocal training, which he did. I mean, he did it like clockwork. It was like 1 p.m. to 2 o'clock. He would do his vocal training, his vocal exercises in the house. And we knew we had to be quiet. We couldn't disturb him. And he would use the piano for his notes and do the scales up and down. Right. And then he would sing songs in the afternoon, and you would not disturb him because he.
So when he sang the songs with the Polish songs?
Sancta Lucia and Polish songs, and pretty much Italian operatic songs, yeah. And he had heroes that were from those greats from that time.
So is Kathleen singing Irish songs to you?
My mum used to sing as well, but my mum used to like writing songs.
Ah.
And she's got a book of lyrics that are really catchy. She always wanted us to put music to her words and her little tunes, but they were kind of very kind of like, I'll be loving you always, our love is true. Was that kind of very much of
and
that?
Did she sing them?
She sang them in that kind of tone of voice, you know. So we were all surrounded by music. My brother had the guitar he bought. I don't know what possessed him to get one, but he got one, Tony, and then Stephen followed with a bass guitar. Yeah. And I wasn't. I'd already seen this drum kit in the local shop, and I didn't know really what I was doing, you know, other than the fact that they used to rehearse the house opposite me in their garage. I say rehearse because I hadn't even honed the skills to play really. Yeah. But they would go over to see a friend of ours. He was the family was a local cobblers in Langley. They repaired shoes, the McIlvenney family. And and Peter, their son, had bought this tiny little drum kit. It was a blue aquamarine sparkle blue Gigster kit. It had no floor tom and a little one rack tom and a really cheapy snare and a hi-hat. That's what it was. And I kind of wandered over there and kind of feeling a little bit left out, I guess. And I kind of was really excited by the drums again. You know, I looked at the drum kit and he wasn't really playing anything. It was a bit of a din. Nobody was really making any sense of the instrument. Yeah. I sort of in the space, in the gap, when he sort of said, well, have a go, Mark. I found it instinctively pleasing. And I found it quite easy to get a rhythm together. Right. Very easy. I don't know why. I wasn't playing like I've got the bass drum together, but I could tap in time and play along from the cymbal to the snare, perhaps, and just the falls on the bass drum very easily. Right. I don't know. It just kind of felt very instinctively. Perhaps the word is easy, but it didn't feel alien. Like if I pick up a guitar.
So how old are you?
I'm
12.
No. I started late. I was 15.
Right, so go back a little bit then, right, before you get the drum kit. And instinctively you know that the drum kit's, it's not necessarily the thing for you at that point, but you know
I have no idea what's going on. I'm just exploring it, you know, it's a novelty right now, you know.
So your mum's singing these Irish songs and writing them, and your dad's operatic trained and stuff. What are you listening to?
I'm listening to my dad and my mum. My mum's records were all the 60s records, you know. From my mum loved Adam Faith. Right. And the pizzicato string section and Gene Pitney and all, you know, and we had some soul records, and she would put the record on our little dance set record player, and my dad would put like Hungarian gypsy music on there, you know. Do 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 do, and anyway we sort of run around as kids, as it got faster and faster, you know. Hungarian gypsy music was always something that
so did you
and obviously my dad, sorry to cut you in, would have his 78s, which he also made some records as well. So he would put I had extreme of Italian and that kind of opera, classic opera songs, traditional songs being played by my father as well, and what were the hits at the time, the Beatles as well, Billy J. Kramer I always remember.
He sings one of my songs.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It comes as a surprise to you.
Yeah. So
John Lennon wrote all his songs. He sings one of my songs.
But
so it's a great grounding. It's a great grounding for you.
And we had the piano as well, so we would sit together. You know, we would always do the chopsticks together and work out different things, and I would go at the top end of the piano, my brother would swap out, and then with four of us would play the piano, not in any great thing, but find some kind of musical sense.
And in that area where you're living, it doesn't sound like a poor area.
No, it's Langley, and it's a village, which is nice. It's changed a lot since, because a lot of time has passed. And it had a village community there at the time, village shops, and people knew each other. And it hasn't, you know, it's still a good, convenient place to live. But it's not a posh area as such. But it's near Windsor, which you can go to. It's 3 miles away. And near Slough, and it's very near Heathrow, which is why the house was chosen by my father.
So the McIlhannies, what were
McIlvennys.
The McIlvennys.
Yeah.
I mean, are you looking at your neighbours? You know, I'm assuming this is the mid-50s.
No, this would have been gosh, let's do the maths. It would have been 60. Yeah, late. It's sort of late 60s.
Oh yeah, late 60s. Yeah, but that's you in your teens.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But that's when I was only 15, 16 when I was looking at that drum kit.
Okay, yeah. So I'm taking you back a wee bit.
Oh, take me back. Sorry.
I'll take you back just a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good.
I'm trying to get a sense of Langley School. I'm trying to get a sense of the kids. I mean, you don't sound to me like you're all running about with black eyes.
No.
Like and having to swap neighbours' milk.
No, it wasn't like that where we were.
And it's good, and I like that, and I think that's lovely, because it sounds to me it's almost like the Garden of England, Langley.
Well, it's west of London, and having Windsor on your doorstep and Datchet, and I would rather gravitate to Windsor rather than Slough. Yeah. You had nice places to go.
Isn't it great? And what I'm trying to say is, isn't it how fate deals its lovely hand?
Yeah.
Isn't it great from a young man that's had an impoverished life, all of his life, till he arrives, and then this first generation of new immigrants, of the first English kids, of this man from Poland and this woman, from. You told me she was from Ballybunion.
Yeah, that's where her ancestors would have been.
Were from. So, and here we are. We get one generation from this young man.
Yeah.
That's practically starved himself in his life to these young kids. What a joy it must have been for your dad to watch these 5 children.
My dad was very different to. I mean, I've only had one father, but I could see my dad was different to most fathers in the way he allowed us to have full expression. He never had a family, and his dream was to have a family, but he had no role model, being an orphan and having no mum and dad and stuff, and not really having anyone love and care for him. His whole life was us.
Oh yeah.
And so my father, because I paint and draw as well, and my father saw that at an early age and really encouraged that, to the point where, I mean, my mum put up with a lot of things. If we'd had a train set on the floor, which we all did as kids, it never got put away. Because he would say, no, that is their room to, and he said, well, it's my living room, Peter. No, they must play. When the children come back from school, they want to play with them. So our house was kind of an open house. Yeah. I'd knock on people's doors down my road, and it'd be like I'd be stood at the door thinking I'd be let in, but no, I'm stood at the door. But I'd come home, there's already 6 people in my house, playing with the train set.
And but the joy he must have got.
Yeah, he used to.
Did your dad? Can I ask? Did your dad have any brothers or sisters?
No, we don't know. We don't know nothing about my father regarding that.
Right.
Yeah, we don't know pretty much anything about. I don't even know if what his real age was, because his passport was kind of worked out years later. His birth certificate, I should say.
Yeah.
But with the freedom that my father and my mother gave me to express ourselves, even to the aghast of my mum, who wanted more of a traditional home, but my father was very much he was incredibly practical as well, being an engineer. He would let us paint on the walls, draw on the walls in the hall. Express yourself, Mark. And Mum would say, oh, well, can we just allocate a little? I'll put a little frieze of wallpaper around, and you can paint in those squares, which we did. Yeah. And I would either crayon on there or get oil paints and paint on the wall. Yeah. And Mark has created a great piece, do not take it off, So for years we had my drawings on the wall at random, it wasn't a normal household, where the train set was still up, and climbing over it 6 months later.
And the thing is, I'm not sure what a normal household is.
No, I don't know either.
I don't know what a normal household is, because some people say, I've chinwagged, and interviewed people before, and they'll say, I've interviewed people that have said, oh yeah, my mum ran away when I was 10.
Yeah.
And I never saw her again. So I didn't know what a normal household is. And I hear that frequently for people to say in all different aspects of life.
I guess there's no normal, is it? It's just what works.
It's whatever the norm is. And whatever inspires you to conjure up, and I'm going to move forward now a little bit, to conjure up to Tony starting to get interested in the bit of music which stems your interest, and I think that freedom of expression from both your parents, because your mum allowed you to have that too.
Absolutely.
Even though it was your dad's idea. But they have that thing that they've given you that freedom of expression. So Tony then goes out to do that. Your sister's obviously interested in music. Your younger brother, is it?
Yeah, Stephen.
Stephen is interested in music. So you've got all these wee first generation, Polish, Irish, English kids now having this freedom to roam in what sounds like a very idyllic village, and a safe village as well. To move forward in that. So let me then take you to your 12, 11, 13, around about that age, and you're not only full of the joys, but you're now starting to experience a little bit of what Mark would maybe want to do, because you're making decisions at that age.
Yeah, sure.
So what decisions are you making? Are you making decisions that you're going to live in Hollywood? Are you what's your dreams?
Well,
remember?
I remember being at school, and I was always very good at art. I was good at metalwork. I was good at technical drawing. I think I was the best in the school.
Right.
And I was the best in the school at art. I know that because I used to be commissioned to paint the school, and that was from my infant school.
Yeah.
And my first school, I was a Catholic school, taught by nuns. And when I was like 6 years old, they said, because I could draw really well at an early age, and they said, well, come and paint the school. And I painted the school.
I painted the school as
well. You did?
But I wasn't invited.
Oh, right.
I spray painted it.
So I painted the school. They set the canvas up and I painted it. I was so young, and it was properly framed in a proper heavy wooden frame and glass. And it stayed in that school for like 20 years, and it went into the headmaster's office. And a similar thing happened when I was at St. Joseph's, when we went to the secondary school. Again, I was asked to do drawings to put in the front of the school, so when people come in and visit, they've got this artwork, and a lot of it was my drawings.
And do you think, as your first memories then, do you think then you're going to be an artist?
Wasn't sure, because things were happening with me. I knew I wanted to do something with my hands. I wanted to be creative. What I didn't want to do was to have a sit down, a sedentary job in an office. Yeah. And I was really into being creative and making things, so I really enjoyed metalwork. And I really enjoyed technical drawing, so I was good at that. Kind of played hand in hand with making things. And I was really good at my art. I thought my mum and dad were hoping I would go to art college.
Right.
And they always encouraged me. They bought me oil paints when I was 10 years old, which I used to do oil paintings. I've still got all these paintings.
Wow.
And what really changed everything I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I was kind of using my biggest strength, which was my ability to draw and paint. My parents were saying, this is where we'd like to take you to art college. My dad, you're going to be a great artist one day, he used to say, you're already, he was, so that was kind of where my parents were heading for me. And at the same time, I was getting really interested in mechanical things, engineering, because my father would fix things and I would help him fix things, and I would be the one that would later on help him fix cars together. So I learnt a lot from my father. He was an incredible engineer. Yeah. He used to invent things as well. He invented many things that we see now, but he just had no way of... I found some, when he passed, I found some wonderful letters from BOAC, rejection letters, rejection after rejection after rejection of, thank you for your suggestion of this invention that would unfortunately, we feel you are too futuristic. And everything he invented, they now use. Okay. And I've got these letters, and I've kept them for that reason. He had a brilliant mind for that stuff. Yeah. We had a self-flushing toilet at home with a platform we stood on that he made, to the horror of my mum, because it was like Heath Robinson. It was all bits of rods and metal bars coming across to a ratchet and stuff, and you stand on the platform and that pushes the thing. He made all these things. He had these. I'm digressing. He only ever rode for a great engineer. We never had a car as a child, so we cycled everywhere. We had 5 children. We just cycled or walked.
Why didn't we have a car?
We didn't have one.
Do you think
maybe
was it
couldn't.
money?
Well, my dad could never drive, and my mum could never drive.
Oh, and they never did drive?
No, my mum wasn't that interested in driving. She did later on, and my dad didn't really have any interest other than when Tony first got his car. He was like, bring the car in, I want to service it, and of course once he touches the car, he's got it for weeks because he takes such a long time because good job takes good time. So, we were terrified to bring any...
So did he never drive you?
No, he only had a moped. But I remember I found these in his garage when he passed, and I've kept them. He invented these gloves. They were like mittens. There were mittens. Like, so you got this bit here, and you got the sort of aerodynamic bit here, so the wind doesn't go down your sleeves. And then a light bulb on the back that he got my mum to sew on, and 2 poppers here with some batteries in there. So when you touch your hands together, the light goes on. So when you indicate, you just put your hand out, touch your hand, and the light bulb goes on at the end of your hand, and it worked. So I used to ride with those on, kind of eccentric.
People must have loved them.
Yeah, and also, the remove before flight fluorescent tags. He had loads of those on his arms so that people could see that would rattle in the winds for safety, because he was very conscious of things like that.
Sounds like a real character.
He was a real character.
Did he keep diaries?
Yeah, he did, particularly on voice, on singing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they're like treasures, because he had with the teacher, he had his own way of seeing how you sing correctly from here, and what you visualize, and even to your diet, what you have when you sing.
What about photographic evidence of him? Do you have any photos of him with these amazing things?
No, because we don't. I just remember my dad coming in from work as a kid, and I'd run out to meet him and push the moped in, because it would be this high, the back number plate for me, and I could see him in all the tassels, and that was very special.
So he was taking the moped down to the airport?
Yeah, down to the airport, yeah.
Which wasn't that far.
But it was a motorised bicycle. You had an engine.
Like,
you put
they're making them now.
Yeah, you put it onto the bicycle, so it wasn't even fully fledged moped.
And he made that?
No, he bought that, but he had all these different inventions that he had a bicycle stand that when he got off it, the stand deployed and spring loaded and stuff from the saddle, and then
sounds like he should have had a job for Tefal.
So
remember those Tefal guys? Remember the adverts, Tefal, and it was all these guys with big giant heads because they were so intelligent, and they would show you like a kettle or something. Go Tefal.
Well, I found my dad had this amazing. He used to make little models to work, and he had one with Pete Townsend stamped on it. When it's your thing, so you keep your tools, you stamp your name on it. And I still have this rocket about this size. It looks like Thunderbird 1 from the 1930s, 40s. And it's a swing wing. It's a variable wing pitch to say, what you need is your wings to be out for landing and tip back for full flight. Yeah. So I had a variable swing wing in 1940 something, and he made a model of it. I still have that. He also invented an arrestor. He said there should be gravel at the end of the runway so that when the plane overshoots, it goes into soft earth rather than ploughing through, and have a catch net, which they do now. He also drew this aircraft carrier which had a ski lift on for the Second World War to get the planes up, which they now use, but they didn't do it then. He had safety features for the airlines, silencers for... this is one that made me laugh. He did have silencers for aircraft engines, but he said to me once, he said, I'd have to do the accent, Mark, we live near Heathrow, and you hear what the aeroplane is called, the Whispering Giant, and they name it because it's very noisy, right? It's called the Whispering Giant. Yeah. He said, I'm sure he was joking, but in a way he wasn't. He said, what I thought was, instead of hearing the noise which is like and escaping gases from the rear engine, like a whistling kettle, you put a baffler on the back and maybe make a nice chord. So when it takes off, it goes, la.
That's genius.
So the noise is actually pleasant.
Rather than hearing this earthquake.
Earthquake. It's actually turned into a really nice noise with a harmony. It was. I don't think it was serious, but in a way, I was never sure with my dad.
Did your brothers and sister? Did they? 2 sisters?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did they find him as entertaining as you?
Yeah, they did. But I was very much like my father.
Did your mum? Did your mum find all this funny?
I think she put up with that because he used to. The dining room sometimes had a vice on it, where he was making things. My mum's dining room table.
She's trying to make soda bread. He's making a rocket.
Yeah, he's making a rocket, but he was really fascinated by gyros. So he had lots of gyroscopes.
There's a lot of gyros up here, but it was all to do with unemployment.
So he would, he would discuss with me, and we had a blackboard in the dining room, and we would discuss the way centrifugal force works and how it can self-level and what uses they may be, and it should be under a bus. That when you put your brakes on, this big disc starts to rotate underneath so that it can put the energy back into the vehicle, and it should self-level boats and all this stuff. He was and all the drawings were there. He made all these drawings. He was always very creative like that, and doing his singing as well. His life was engineering and his opera.
So I mean, it's never a boring house.
No. There was always something going on.
Fantastic, And did your parents? I'm not going to pry here. It's not, because it's nobody's business. But did they have a good relationship?
They did, but my mum was a bit suffering from the fact that, my dad.
That he was a kitzel.
He really was. Everything was for the children.
Yeah.
So the house was tidy because my mum was always tidying things up, but there were certain things you couldn't move. If my dad had his invention things going on and he was making something, you didn't touch it. If he had notes of his music, you didn't move it. So things like that, and of course. We always had so many people around the house because we had like an open house, because my dad embraced the family and seeing children play, and enjoying themselves, which he never had.
I know, exactly. So, from being an orphan, I mean, it's almost like he deserves all of this.
Yeah.
It's like, this is the treasure of a man that's brought up as an orphan and moved from pillar to post and moved from Hungary to Poland, and Poland to France, and France to England, and then eventually finds some sort of stability, some sort of family. I've got another person that I know very well, and he clearly states that the one thing that he wanted in his life was a family.
Yeah, that's what my father wanted.
And he achieved that, like your dad. He achieved that and is very proud of it. And I think that's a beautiful thing. We had a family basis in our home, so we knew family, and you knew family. But can you imagine not knowing family?
No, I can't, because I had such a great family upbringing. Probably different to a lot of people by the fact that I had two brothers and two sisters, and my dad was so. He so much loved us expressing ourselves. He allowed full expression, he really, and so did my mum, because she tolerated that. And particularly my mum wanted me to get into the arts, because she always, for my birthdays, I always got drawing equipment and paints and things.
Well, let me take you a little bit forward then. Let me move a little bit forward into, tell me your family's name again. You've got Tony.
Francis, me, then we got Steve. And Janina. Or Janina.
Lovely Polish. So you've got all the kids, and you're all coming of an age now, and you're moving on a little bit, and I'm almost loathed to leave this wonderful childhood. And it's beautiful, and it's so, that's what it is, that's what family should be. It's everything, to me, everything. And so you move on a little bit, and Tony's up a little bit. So Tony, you're all hitting you're past your early teens, and you're moving on now. And so who's first to flock the nest? Is it Tony?
I think it was my sister.
So she's flocked.
She went first. Right. to find a flat and to. I think
London?
she lived in Windsor for a while.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And then I think, I can't remember exactly the timeline, but I think she. Because my grandmother also lived, because when my mum lived in Southall, my grandmother lived in Southall. Right. So she used to regularly visit, my sister used to regularly visit my grandma. And
is your granny a wee London lady or an Irish lady?
Lucas, But
is she Irish or London?
She was a London lady.
Ah, okay, so her mum and her dad were Irish. Yeah. Although she's Irish, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out.
I'm a bit vague there, because I think my grandfather may have been the Irish side.
There you go. And that's cool. Yeah. So Francis is first to
and she stays in Southall often, because there was now space in the family home in Southall. Well, my mum's now, my mum was one of six sisters, 6 girls, I should say. Yeah. So she's often there, and then she was the one that was very independent, and she lived locally in Old Windsor actually. Yeah.
So Francis goes. Who goes next?
Tony
goes. And is he going to college?
Actually, I can't think who went next, because Yeah, I think Tony went next.
So goes.
Tony got a job at the airport because it's now Heathrow Airport.
Yeah.
It went from being called London Airport to Heathrow Airport.
Right.
So he got a job at BOAC from my father.
Yeah.
And he started off in the at 16 in the is it called delivery office, where you just send mail around and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And then
the
you
sorting office.
but internally for BOAC, yeah.
Yes.
And he ended up until recently. He's only recently retired to be one of the managers at Terminal 5.
Brilliant.
So every time I checked in at Heathrow, I'm going forward here, they would go look at my passport and give me a double look and go, "Your brother's my boss." Yeah, I always got recognised at the airport from my brother. So my brother was the famous one at the airport, not me.
Oh yeah. So now it's time for us to move into it, or for you to move into when Mark is thinking now. So you've got the basis, you've got brilliant basis. What a foundation to start from. So tell me a wee bit about you now. Let's get to 16, 17. Where you're just moving now. You're not moving away, but where are you going? Are you going to college? Do you think you're going to college?
Well, I've just done my exams.
Do you go to college?
I do.
Right.
I go to aircraft college.
Right. Okay.
So my mum wanted me and my dad wanted me to go to an art college, but as it happens, I was getting very interested in engineering as well as my drawing, and I was able to go. I worked for British Aerospace in a subcontract firm, but it was part of British Aerospace.
And you're how old at this point?
16, yeah. So I started my apprenticeship, but already, because I'd already discovered that drum kit on my neighbours, I bought that drum kit, brought it home. I do have a video of myself playing that very kit in the bedroom with Steve playing bass with me.
Brilliant.
It's on my phone. But I brought it home, and my father allowed me. He didn't really want me to play the drums.
Because not surprised in a small house like that.
Yeah, and I said it was a tiny kit. It didn't have a floor tom. And I made one out of corrugated cardboard with coat hanger legs and an old drum skin on it. And it famously, in the Slough Workingmen's Club, where I was with my first band called Acne and the Teenage Complaint,
we're going to get to that.
It blew off stage as the support act came in.
Oh, brilliant.
It blew off stage like tumbleweed, to my horror. That's a famous story.
Great.
Yeah. Anyway, so I bought this drum kit with my paper round money at the time. I still think I owe money on. No, I was joking. And I used to practice with a huge towel over it, and I could practice from like 6 o'clock till 6:30. But my father gave me, he said, "I may have something that," I was doing my father's accent. I have something that may be of interest to you. You are untrained. You need to train yourself. You cannot just be skilled at hitting things. You have to be trained. Right. This is regardless of what I was about doing my apprenticeship. Because my apprenticeship as an aircraft engineer, I did engines and airframe.
Yeah.
My music drumming was done together. I would come in late from work because and we'll get to that. And he had a book on the RAF School of Drum Rudiments, marching drums.
Wow.
So it was marching drum rudiments. So I sat down. I wasn't really playing the kit properly, but I was finding my way. And I was
still untrained.
I was untrained.
Yeah.
And I sat down. He said, "You must learn things. You must learn how to play. This may help you." I still have that book. So I sat down and learned the military style of I held the stick the right way.
The kind of mammy daddies.
Yeah, the mammy daddies and the paradiddles and the ratamacus and the 5-stroke rolls from this book very early, thinking I've got to do. It's good that I've got that book, and I kind of learned a little bit of the marching rudiments before I got fully into the drum kit. So it gave me that in my style a little bit.
Yeah.
I already had that. But I was then playing in all kinds of daft little setups, like my brother's mate from school. We had a little band called Acne and the Teenage Complaint. I don't even know. My brother wanted to form a band with me, and he was more like, "No, me, you and Steve will have a band called New York City Public Library." That's the name of the band as well.
Good name.
Yeah, of what I thought as well.
Yeah.
But we didn't really do anything, and somehow Tony kind of left the guitar pretty quickly because he was getting very busy at work. He was doing really well at work, getting promoted, and then girls appeared and stuff like that. Yeah. So the guitar stopped. Steve carried on playing the bass, and I carried on playing the drums. And me and Steve, I had a motorbike, and me and Steve we loved seeing. There were a lot of bands playing around the West London area,
right.
And there was one particular band that we liked that always was a big catalyst for me, and it was a band called Silverstream, and it had a blind singer, and it ended up having a blind singer and a blind keyboard player,
right.
And they were incredible musicians.
Wow.
And I used to sit and watch them with my brother, because I learned to play drums just by watching drummers and listening to drummers. I wasn't taught by anyone, only the rudiments from my father's military drumming book.
Right.
And after getting to know them, because we were always going to see them play, the drummer left, and every now and again I would go in and dep and do one of the songs. We were playing the top 10 in the 1970s.
Yeah.
And then I got the gig, and so it was life-changing, because I was now regularly gigging. I was now doing my apprenticeship at British Aerospace, doing these gigs at kind of working men's clubs and British Legions, playing weddings, dances, but I had to play what was in the charts, and we had rehearsals, and we had to be pretty accurate, but I had to play very quiet while they're eating their dinner, but louder when they're dancing and there's a lot of people, without speeding up.
So what was in the charts?
I Want You Back, Michael Jackson, I Want You Back, and there was it at the Brick House, all the 70s stuff, all the disco stuff.
Yeah.
And David Gates with Bread and When Your Body's Had Enough, all that stuff, great songs.
Great songs.
Yeah, and we did Steely Dan songs. We also did jazz songs like Desafinado, Bossa Novas, cha-chas. You had to learn that stuff.
Yeah.
So, and again, we didn't have there's no internet or anything. I'm just literally listening to the radio, listening to my brother's records, because he had the record player and we couldn't use anything of his. It was his.
Yeah.
And he loved David Bowie and he loved Led Zeppelin, and he was always playing those records. So I was interested in that as well. I didn't buy any records. I was just listening to my brother's stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And the only things I did buy were like the jazz fusion records that had great drumming on it.
Right.
But quite selfishly for me to listen to the drum detail, because they're always up in the mix.
Right.
And I was always trying to play like that. But I was doing Silverstream, and really enjoying it. I was doing my apprenticeship at work, coming in late because I just got back at 2 a.m. Drummer first to go in, last to come out.
Yeah.
I bought my first vehicle, which was a 1966 local vehicle from Hillingdon, which is the next borough to me, in London Borough of Hillingdon. I bought a motorway maintenance Ford Transit with the black and yellow stripes on the back, with the logos on the side, which was fantastic because I could park anywhere on the yellow line, just to put the bollards each side of my vehicle when I was unloading the van, So I had that, and we had all our H&H gear from Silverstream. That was quite high tech at the time. Our own PA on little stems, and I had a little bass cabinet just to mic up my bass drum. I always carried a bass drum. I only had it because I always thought the bass drum was the only thing missing. I could hear everything, but I missed that low end.
Yeah.
And for it to sound like the record, that was missing, that low end thump.
Yeah.
So I used to have a D12 microphone, a little HH amplifier, and a Gibson cabinet. Not Gibson. Yeah, it was a Gibson. I think it was a Gibson cabinet.
Yeah.
Bass cabinet. And everything, because I had the van, everything lived in my van.
No Gibson made bass cabinet.
I think it was Gibson.
I'm sure it was, yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, mate. It was a Marshall.
Yes.
But everything was kept in my van, and I had aircraft seats in my van as well, because being that Dad got them for me, and had a from a VC-10, those who know aircraft, from a 60s aircraft. And I loved that vehicle, sliding doors. I had that for a long time. And I was using that to go to work and stuff, and then going in late, clocking in, and I'm an hour late, but I'm bleary-eyed because I've done a gig and I've not got back till 4 a.m, and I'm back now 8 o'clock in the morning doing my apprenticeship. But
So what age are you here now? You're 19 or something?
16. 17, 18. Because 16 I was doing the daft bits with my schoolmates and stuff. It started in the garage and doing the local club where my Tom flew off stage.
Yeah.
And then I was looking, I was about 17, 18, and I was looking to get into something original. And one thing really changed me on the direction for my drumming, and it still gets me to this day. I'd never seen a band play live other than the local pubs and clubs and working men's clubs. It's all I ever saw.
Yeah.
I'd never seen a real live band in London, or a proper band. And a friend of mine said to me, you're into drumming, why didn't you come along and see this amazing band? There's a band called Boxer that he wanted to see. Boxer, not Joe Boxer, Boxer. No. And a support band is called Brand X. And I knew nothing about Brand X. So this was life-changing for me. And it was down in Wardour Street in London, somewhere down there. It may have been the Marquee.
Right.
And I was in London, in the club. I felt like on top of the world. I was already a drummer. My apprenticeship's going well. I can drive. I've got my van. And I'm learning all these lovely rhythms from copying the records.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, who came out on drums was Phil Collins. It's Phil Collins' side project when Genesis weren't working. That was the rumour. And sure enough, he came out holding he had a big beard and he had a boiler suit on, and he had a bucket of paint he came out with, and he put it next to his drum kit, and there was all rumours about that. Now, apparently the reason was because his wife ran off with the decorator. He used to do that. That was what he used to do.
Right.
So I'm sitting there and I saw Boxer, which didn't really do anything for me, and I'm like glued to Phil Collins, and the drum kit was incredible, all single-headed, all these tom-toms. I already had my drum kit, which mine was a mixture kit from my local drum store. I covered in sticky back to make them look the same colour. I called it what do I call it? I'll remember the name in a minute. A Bitzer kit, a bits of this and a bit of that. It's a Bitzer kit. What do you play? I play a Bitzer. What's that drum kit? It's a bit of everything. So I was completely floored by his drumming, like nothing I've ever seen or heard before to that level. And I saw him again. I think it was Hammersmith Odeon supporting Weather Report.
Oh,
right.
Brilliant.
And I had their album and I bought it. And I sat and listened to an album called Unorthodox Behaviour. I just listened and listened and listened. I still listen to that. It's my favourite drumming album ever. If it could put it on a desert island and say that's all I want to be kept as drumming.
Yeah.
It's the best album I've ever heard for drums, ever, period. And I met Phil Collins after the show. I managed to meet him.
Right.
And he was a very nice guy to me. I said, I'm doing covers and stuff, and I absolutely love your drumming and Genesis, but this is I don't know what to say. And I said to him, hopefully one day I'll be a famous drummer like yourself. And he said, well, I hope that happens for you. You will be. You got to keep the dream, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I had that meeting with Phil, and that resonated with me because I'd met this famous drummer, and I just kept practicing and trying to play that record. And so my mind now was, I want to be in a band a bit like that. So I'm still doing Silverstream with the blind singer, and now we've got a blind keyboard player, which are incredible people.
Yeah.
And I was looking for the back pages of the Melody Maker in my local shop, and I came across an advert, and I was generally looking at at things to see if anything interests me, and I saw this one. It said, because Bill Bruford was a drummer that also played for Genesis alongside Phil Collins, and it said drummer wanted. So I looked at it and it said Bill Bruford style, Phil Collins style drummer wanted. I thought it's going to be that kind of music.
Right.
Now there's a coincidence here I've got to share with you. I never told people this at the time.
Right.
I was wanting to practice my drums to bring my own thing rather than playing the covers, to express myself on my own, which I could never do at home.
Yeah.
And right next to Heathrow Airport is Ashford, which is a little village right next to Heathrow. I mean, planes are flying right over the school. You can almost touch them.
Yeah.
I set my drums up in the classroom because I found out I could do it for £5 an evening. And they put the chairs on the desk, and then there's a bit of space on the floor to set up my drums. Unbeknown to me, I could hear a guitarist playing in the other room.
Right.
And we both came out to see who the hell was making the noise, because I thought I was on my own. I'm going to add something to this as I used to practice. Remind me, this is interesting. And it was a guy called Gary Stevenson, who ended up being a producer for Go West. And
oh, wow. So
he's playing guitar, and he said, all right, Rocker, why don't we play together? So we used to jam together, just me and him.
Yeah.
And in West Drayton, which is right by Heathrow as well, the next village, he put this whole studio above a breaker's yard, the office of the breaker's yard, with all the smashed up cars, a tiny little room with a studio and a little drum kit. And we were putting money in the pot to rent that place and kind of do some music, I'm just going to say, the other place I practiced, in that very van I talked about, I would take the gear out, cover it with plastic, so my van was free, and I would go down the Colnbrook bypass, which is the bypass to Heathrow, and because there was nowhere to walk, it was only lorries that trundled down there, and there was a lay-by I used to park my van in the lay-by, set up a tiny kit in the back of my van, put my soundproof headphones on, and play along to Brand X in the back, and go to the front of the van and rewind the cassette again. What was that bit I want to learn? Go and learn it. Rewind it. Oh, gone too far. Oh no, the tape's stuck. I had all that. I used to practice in lay-by in my Ford Transit because nobody could hear me. Lorries are trundling. There's no pedestrians. Nobody to tell me to shut up. Yeah. So I was learning the Brand X stuff, a way of teaching me to play because they're all odd time signatures and stuff. Yeah. And at the same time, I'd met Gary, and he said to me, "I tell you what, you know what kind of music you like. Here's a tape. You want to check these guys out." Didn't think anything of it. Put it in my van, Carnbrook Bypass, learning this band. I don't know what they're called. It's prog rock. Nothing's in 4/4. Sounds incredible. I learnt it stick for stick. This is the killer. You cannot script this. I rang up the advert for the Bill Bruford and Phil Collins style drummer. Got the call. Come down. We're auditioning at Shepperton Studios, film studios. It's the Who Studios, J Stage. I thought, oh right, that's Who. That's a famous band. So I went down there in my Ford Transit, got there, and I went, oh my God, it's the music that I've been practicing in my van. It's that band looking for a drummer. It's complicated. I can play it. I've rehearsed. I'm ready to go. Yeah. So out came the manager, who was Polish, funny enough, Vitek Schlamp, and he said, "Oh, I'm afraid there's been so many people apply. I can hear them all train crashing at the first bar 7 because it's not in 4/4. I know it's not. I know the songs. Yeah. I didn't know it was the same band. Wow. I had no idea. So I'm desperate to play because I can play it. And Vortek came out and said, "There's been too many people apply. I'm afraid you're not going to be seen." I went, "Oh my God, I can play this stuff." "I'm sure you can." So they've earmarked a drummer. Obviously, he doesn't know the songs. They're incredibly complicated. I said, "I've been here for about 6 hours." So I'd even learnt the songs they're doing at the door. Yeah. And then came out Tony Butler. He was in this band. I had no clue who it was. He said to me, "Oh, hello, I'm Tony. I hear you've been on here a long time. I'm awfully sorry, but we've kind of earmarked a drummer. But thank you so much for, waiting. We really appreciate the fact, but give us your number just in case. And you never know, this stuff's not easy." And then Simon Townsend comes out, who I didn't know his name. Yeah. Comes out and he says, "Oh, hello, mate. Oh, he's been here all this time. Why don't you come and play one song?" "I'd love to." I didn't tell him anything. He said, "We'll go through it." And I said, it's okay, just play it to me. And I played it stick perfect. Yeah. They went like jaw dropped. They went, "Hey, well, let's throw this one at you." Played it perfect because that's what I used to rehearse to. Yeah, what's the chances of that? Yeah. And so obviously they went.
So I guess let me stop you slightly. For people that don't know, Tony Butler is obviously
he's a big country's bass player.
And Pete Townsend, Simon Townsend.
It's Pete Townsend's younger brother.
Peter's younger brother.
Yeah, well, hence they were rehearsing at the Who stage.
And this is, but I mean, this is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
I mean, this shouldn't happen. That you should have to serve your apprenticeship up and down the country in shit bands. Your transit van barely on its last legs.
Yeah, it was all around West London. We played on the covers band in that transit, but I had that van during this. Yeah. So I met Simon, I met the band, and then we were now a six-piece prog rock band called the Simon Townsend Band, and it's like, so my kit got the Rototoms, looked at the Phil Collins setup, and wow, I'm playing that kind of music, and I was like, this is incredible. So we were then recording at Pete Townsend's studio at Eel Pie because Pete would give Simon studio time.
You've arrived.
Yeah. Well, we hadn't got a record deal. We were playing the Red Lion in London. Yeah. And another pub in Fulham, the Greyhound in Fulham, regularly. And we were having Genesis Road Crew come to see us, rammed, because it was that kind of music was popular then. And then. We didn't still have a record deal. We couldn't get a record deal, but we were really revered. We were all teenagers playing incredibly complex music. Yeah. And it was a great thing for me because it's kind of where I wanted to be with learning my drums. I was excited by the fact it was difficult drumming and I could pull it off, and it was and it had the Phil Collins kind of approach that I could bring. Hence the advert was for that. And things changed where punk broke. All of a sudden, punk rock broke. And it killed disco and to a certain extent prog rock. It was like the antichrist to that stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I like this sort of music, because I could have done that 4 years ago when I wasn't very good. I used to say to myself,
well, you might have done it when you were 3 or 4.
Yeah, but it's not true actually, because looking back, everything has a value.
Of course.
And that shaped me as well, because what happened, that was a really great thing to happen, because I admired the energy in the band, and I admired the fact that they were real bands playing real original stuff with a certain amount of power. And they meant what they were doing.
Pure aggression.
So we went from a 6-piece band as a Simon Townsend band to a 4-piece power pop trio. Then it became a 3-piece, and we were called On the Air. So it ended up just me. It was Simon, and we're playing Jam-esque type songs, Clash type songs, and a little bit of Policey type songs. And as a 3-piece, a bit like the Jam and the Police. And we had a guy who was a manager who worked for. He got us a deal at Warner Brothers. I can't think how old we must have been. 19. And we released 2 singles on Warner Brothers under the name On the Air, recorded at Pete Townsend's studio, which was across the road in Broadwick Street in London. So Pete gave us free studio time. John Astley, who was Pete's wife's brother, produced us, John Astley. And we had 2 singles out, which got sort of mild review, and nothing really happened other than we had 1 tour to do, which the record company organised us, and that was supporting a band called the Skids. So the connection starts to happen.
So I mean the Skids are, because they've came along in the whole punk thing. And and that, as you say, that's coming in. The prog rock thing was just before my time. Although I must say I didn't like it anyway.
No, of course.
It was too...
For a drummer, it's a good thing.
Oh, it's fantastic for your skill set.
It was for my skill set,
because you can take that skill set anywhere, and adapt that to anything. It's the same thing. It's like if you can play, I Can't Stand Losing You on a Shetland Island guitar. You can play it on anything.
Absolutely.
You're there. So you've got the skill set of someone that's the reason why musicians like me that bastardised music didn't like prog rock is because we knew we couldn't play it. We were just jealous, but we made it out that we wanted to be punks,
I really love songs, I'm a song drummer, and I found that not only did punk make great memorable songs, they also had great energy as I really liked the Clash. I thought they had...
I mean, the for instance for me would be if I'd be at a party and Anarchy in the UK come on, and then someone else at the party played a Rush song.
Oh yeah.
I would want the Rush song to finish really quickly, so that we could get
in a way
career opportunity with the Clash or something.
I mean, for me, it was really, I admired the musicianship, and it was kind of a private way of learning. But my love was real music. Remember that I said that my mum had all these great records. And I loved the fact that they had all these melody lines, and Adam Faith had the string section on it. And I was really moved by my dad's opera. And I love songs that had an intro, a verse, and a really killer chorus. And you could invent an interesting drum part, which I know had the tools to do. And I could see punk doing that. I could see the Jam doing that. I could see Stuart Copeland doing it in the Police.
Absolutely.
So all this stuff I loved, it was nothing I didn't like. I liked all, I loved the Specials songs as well. I liked that ska thing.
So you go on this tour then with the Skids. Was it a UK tour?
It was just in the UK. It wasn't a big tour. It was like 2 weeks.
But that's, I mean, you're in. I mean, my goodness, you're recording in Pete Townsend studio at 19. You're in the fold. It's only yours to lose at this point. It's only yours to lose. I mean, and you're in the fold. You're in. So it's time for Big Mark to kind of shine. So tell me what happens. What happens because Simon and Tony's band, the X-Men. What happens to the X-Men? What happens?
Well, what happens is we do the skids and we still write songs, and we're great friends of the family, me and Simon and Tony, so we're always hanging out together. Tony lives in Acton. I'm just a bit further down the road, down the M4, and so we're always still meeting up as friends. And what happens was, me and Tony, I've missed out a part of my thing here with my brother Steve, which I have to just throw in and edit in. It just not edit in but just to tell.
Get it in.
Yeah, there we go. I was doing. We did an acetate for a friend of ours in a little band when we were doing.
Just explain what an acetate.
Yeah, an acetate is an early pressing of a record.
Right.
Like the first record, you can only play it 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
It's a cheap way of making a record and seeing if it's working out.
Good,
yeah. So, and back in the day, you were making records. You couldn't do CDs or anything. And so we had a little group of friends, and somebody from Slough was a great singer, Pete Hill, and we had a little band together, a little social club at home. This is just before I was doing the Simon Townsend project.
Yeah.
And I recorded in Forbitt's Place in London at Steve Hall's studio. And we did this acetate recording, and the producer said, "I like your drumming." I was only 16 at the time, 17.
Okay.
And he said, "What are you doing next week? What are you doing tomorrow?" So I started to do a lot of session work in the basement just off Carnaby Street.
Right.
All these TV ads. I did Just Juice and all kinds of TV ads that you saw on the TV. Ski yogurt advert. And I was starting doing these jingles, and Mike Hugg from Manfred Mann was writing songs. He came in, the drummer from Manfred Mann.
Right.
He was writing songs for programs. So I'm drumming on all his stuff. Wow. And I'm doing all this session work. So I've now got my session thing going on at Steve Hall's studio, and now this comes where I'm at Simon Townsend's house. We've done the skids tour. Things have, we're writing more songs, rehearsing. Keep going. We're still on the record deal, and Simon says, "Mo, my brother Pete wants to talk to you." So I get on the phone. "Hi, Mark, it's Pete Townsend here." "Oh, hi there. What are you doing Thursday next week?" I said, I don't think I'm doing anything. He said,
"Doesn't matter what the fuck I'm doing, I'm changing it anyway."
Yeah, exactly. He said, "Simon Phillips is not available on my album, and Tony Butler was already recording on this Empty Glass album with Pete Townsend. Can you come and do a track down at Wessex Studios in London? We've got Bill Price, a famous producer from the Sex Pistols and Elton John and everyone. Chris Thomas and Bill Price is the engineer. We've got a great team. Here's the details. I'll see you there." Incredible. So I went down and,
And had you met Pete before?
I had met Pete because we were recording in Ilpie when we were doing the records for On the Air, and the early days when it was the prog rock band with Simon Townsend. We were using Pete's studio because Simon would get it free.
Amazing.
So I went down.
Can't believe had you met Pete before? Like I know him.
Yeah.
Oh, you know Pete.
So we went down to Wessex Studios. I did that record. I went on to work with Pete on every other album, and in fact I'm involved in the new one he's doing right now, so I'm on several of them. So I'm now Pete's now got me on his radar. He's using Tony and me on his new album, and it's now 1981 I think it is, or is it 80, and Pete calls me again, says, "I'm doing a benefit concert for a Right to Work march in Brockwell Park. They're marching from Jarrow all the way down to London in Brockwell Park in North London, and I'm putting the Pete Townsend band together, and I want Tony on bass and you on drums. We've got Peter Hope Evans from Traffic on harmonica, and Neil Hubbard from Brian Ferry on guitar."
Oh, for goodness sake.
So we rehearsed with Pete at Ilpie, Who songs, That Won't Get Fooled Again, all that stuff, and some of his solo stuff, and I played. Went down to this is another changing moment. I went down with Tony, Pete Townsend and the band, and there was a support band called The Members.
I remember them.
Yeah, and the manager of The Members was a guy called Ian Grant. So we were now playing with Pete Townsend, and he was looking for this new band. The Skids, unbeknown to us, had split up, and the new band had been formed called Big Country. And they weren't happy with an early rhythm section that they were trying up here. And so they were looking for a young rhythm section. And what we were told is if they find a good rhythm section, it will secure their record deal at Phonogram. So Ian said, "You two, what are you doing? What's your story? Blah, blah, blah." we would play with Simon. Oh, and Pete. Well, I'd like you to meet Stuart Adamson and Bruce Watson for a meeting down, and they got a studio in London, and to go into the recording studio and record some songs and meet them, and want you to meet the record company. So I was like, yeah, let's go down. So months later we went down when the time was right, recorded, met Stuart and Bruce. We'd already met Stuart on that tour, so we knew each other when we supported the Skids with Simon.
Tell me, just let me interrupt for a second. What's happening with your job at this point?
I'm still... No. Oh, actually...
How are you jumping?
Hang on, I had quit.
So you're not spinning that plate anymore?
No, because I'd already finished my apprenticeship.
And what's your dad saying? And your mum saying?
The day I left, I left because I was signing to Warner Brothers with On the Air.
He's not going to complain about that.
Well, he did, because he didn't think it was a proper job.
Of course.
And he said, he didn't understand really why I was taking this as a career path.
All this time you spent on the apprenticeship.
Yeah, because... but he did insist at the time that I finished my apprenticeship, because I came out as a licensed engineer. It was like it was a fall back on, and so I wasn't now doing that, and I was dedicated full time to do something. So I was doing washing up, I was doing odd jobs, and as a band we were doing jobs together. Like our band would all work in the kitchen, all of us, me, Simon, and Tony. We'd work in the kitchen. So we were just making it work, and. I'm still living at home at times, and then I got a flat in Chiswick, and then I got a flat with a manager's house in Chiswick, and it just kind of, I was moving around. But once my life kind of changed, because we were suddenly signing a record deal, like a 4-album, 5-album deal, with Chris Briggs and Phonogram.
Yeah, Chris.
And the first thing
want to do EMI, Chris Briggs.
He did. He wanted to be the head, and. Mark, overcautious Mark, who doesn't like signing anything, said, "Oh, I don't know if I want to sign the record contract because it may affect my session work, because there may be a thing where I can't play, So they assured me that I had to make sure the lawyer told me this, because I didn't sign it on the day. I said, no, I want it looked at. I want to make sure I can do my session work, because I love that side of things. And so it was okay. Obviously, I'd never been in this situation, being offered a record deal.
Most kids would jump at it.
Yeah, I shouldn't be reading the small print. I should have jumped at it. Yeah, but I did, and so I signed to the record label with Tony and Bruce and Stuart, and we went from there on. We went.
So, without, and we don't need to get personal about this or dive. Were you signing the record deal as equal partners?
Yeah.
So you were signing it all as it wasn't just all of a sudden Stuart Adamson's left the Skids. He's now signed. Chris Briggs is now signing him, and with him and Bruce, his pal from Dunfermline.
We all had an equal record deal. The same. Yeah, it's the same. The band was us.
Yes, which is good, because it isn't.
The interest was Stuart, because he was the songwriter.
Of course.
Yeah. So that got the interest, and what it said was, you give me a good band and we'll sign each individual member band, jointly and separately, what it's called.
Which is great, and that's the way it has to happen, because...
We were not session men.
There's no show without Punch, but Punch needs Judy, and the rest of the gang, and the policeman that hits you over the head with the little, magic stick. So, the truncheon, sorry. But I think that that's important, and the fact that, it's easy for me to say now, as a 50-something, you should have been looking at the small print. Jesus Christ. The small print for me was reading something in the toilet at that time, that's as close to small print as I was ever going to get. And especially at that particular age, my God, I'm not sure I knew my arse from my elbow. Yeah. But certainly, enthusiasm, quite often in those situations, leads people down alleys that so how clever of you to even... at that point think, oh wait a minute.
I was still doing session work, because I was sessioning with Pete still on his next album.
Well, and then it's not as if you weren't playing. You weren't playing with the guy down the road. Yeah, you're playing with Pete Townsend.
Yeah, and then I was and it.
I just playing with one of the
guy, I was working with a lot of, and it just kind of, it just kept escalating with the people that would call me. once I had that reputation, and then I would be working with Roger Daltry, then it was working with guys from Go West, and I was working with this, and I was working with me, you know.
Yeah, so
it kind of
at
snowballed.
That point, once this snowballs, right, and I'm more interested in, you know, I'm more interested in what Peter Brzezicki and Kathleen.
Sure.
I mean, they must be delighted at this point.
Yeah, my dad
and
was still.
And sisters must be.
Yeah, they were for me, and it was, you know, gave the family kudos, I guess. You know, it's a strange thing because my brother was playing bass still. You know, but he had a job at British Airways as well, but he was still playing with me on sessions.
Yeah.
I remember, you know, my dad didn't really understand the music, and he used to say things like, especially when we were on Top of the Pops. You know, he'd say, my son, he's on the Poppity Tops, whatever the program. My son, he's been on the colour television. You know,
the colour television.
Yeah, he would say things like that proudly to the plumber.
Oh, the colour television.
You've got a story about the plumber.
Kathleen, bring the pierogi over here. Bring the pierogies.
My mum was exceedingly proud, and and my dad was still like, you know, I did not expect you to, you know, to do things but you know, he still seems like a very lot of noise, you know.
Well,
and so
it's not.
And until one day, the record company, for some reason, they did that back in the day. I said, we're playing the Hammersmith Odeon. This is like a local gig, really, for Mum and Dad. And so my mum said, oh, great, we're going to one of Mark's gigs, the first one I'll ever see. And my dad, I'm not sure I want to go. I make sure I got my aircraft soundproof headphones on and this as well. And, you know, what else do I have to take?
Any of Defenders?
Yeah, any Defenders. And the double ones in case they come off. I don't know what to expect, you know.
Yeah.
So this limousine arrived and my dad didn't want to get in it. He said, I cannot get in this car. My neighbours will think I've won the football pools. So he said, I don't.
Spot the ball.
Yeah, he just said, I can't get in this car. I get a taxi.
Yeah.
So he felt very uncomfortable. But then Mum's going, she's really enjoying it.
Oh,
you know,
she's getting fun coat
yeah,
on.
she likes all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then, so there's that kind of difference. And my dad reluctantly goes to the gig, and then I meet him afterwards. And he sees all the fans because we were now in the charts and on Pop of the Tops, on the television, or colour television. Yeah. And my dad sort of comes backstage and says, my son, you've done very well, you know, congratulations. Who is the main singer here? Stuart, yeah. Congratulations, Mr. Stuart. You know,
Mr. Stuart.
You know, you done very well. They seem to like you. They know the words, you know.
And that must
Sorry, I keep doing the Polish accent.
Great, though, I love it. And that must have been great for the village and great for your brothers and sisters, you know, because, you know, it's that, you know, I'm sure, you know, when I look at my own memories of what I did and you know, my mum coming to the Barrowlands when I first played the Barrowlands and her looking around the Barrowlands and she genuinely said to me, who else is playing? And I said, it's just us.
Just you.
Yeah, and she went,
wow.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, how are you going to fill this place? And I said, if you hang around for long
You'll
enough,
see
you'll find out.
Yeah.
You know, and she was sitting at the back, up the back, you know, and
brilliant.
I could still see my dad in the crowd. I could still see this silver-haired man like me, you know, this kind of stubborn, you know, he didn't. At no point did he ever discourage me from entering into the music business. But like your dad, he was looking for something that a bit more stable.
Yeah.
So I can imagine, you know, this. It's on the colour television.
Yeah.
You know that.
But he still never. I do tell this story, and it does make. I mean, I laugh because it's hilarious. Really, it's ridiculous. But he still didn't really get what I was doing. My dad, you know, he was really pleased with what I was doing. Didn't think it would last long. You know, but yeah, and he was still concerned about things in that area, but kind of almost written me off because now I'm living out in Chiswick or Acton, where I was there in West London, and then there was, I have told you this story, but I'll share it. It's when the plumber came round. I was upstairs, and I never put any gold discs up or anything. I got one for my mum and dad. That was the same as me. Yeah, I only wanted one to my mum and dad because they're the ones that got me here. And I didn't have nothing on the wall.
One, to be fair.
Yeah, and it was for the crossing, and it was to Peter and Kathleen Brzezicki. That's the one I wanted on the wall.
Yeah.
Not to myself. And it was Pride and Place above the fireplace and stuff. And I remember being upstairs, and the central heating had just broken down, and the plumber was about to leave, and I could hear him talking to my dad, and I didn't want to come down because the conversation was actually unfolding where he said, "What's that gold disc on the wall then?" And my dad goes, "Oh, I haven't got my glasses on. I can't quite see where it is. You like music, do you?" "Oh, yeah, it's my son. Yeah, he play in group." I was like, "Oh, no, I don't want to come downstairs. I don't want to come down." So I hung at the top of the stairs listening. Yeah. And he went, "Oh, yes, he play in the pop group. Yes, you may... Kathleen," my mum. Yeah. "What the name of our group he play?" And I don't think my mum heard. "Oh, hang on, the kitchen door shut. Anyway, yeah, he plays for a group. You may have seen him on the colour television." He was on that pop program. He said, "Really?" He said, "We've got so many famous living here then, have we?" And he said, "Yeah, he's in that band. What's it called?" He said, "I don't know, I've got my glasses. What are they called?" He said, "He's the drummer. Yeah, he sit at the back, but you'll see him. He's the drummer." He said, "What's the name of the band?" He said, "They're called the Beatles." I thought, I can't come downstairs. I thought, oh no, this is ridiculous. And he said, "You're having a laugh, aren't you?" He said, "No, he's been on television only yesterday." Yeah. I didn't come down. He's been on the television only yesterday. So it was only funny. Yesterday. Yeah, and the plumber was like, shaking his head in disbelief. "Oh, I'm out of here." The Beatles. Yeah.
So I mean, fantastic. Yeah. And let's wind on a little bit and move in a bit into your career, because your career's been fantastic. You've had amazing, the band, are just brilliant. Give us a wee insight to Big Country. Give us a wee insight, and listen, we don't have to be too personal about any of this, but a wee insight into the individuals, so you've got two guys. I mean, it's quite unusual, you get two guys from London and two guys from Scotland. Yeah. That's unusual.
It is, and it was logistically unusual because,
it's not for school mates.
No,
it's not Walthamstow.
But we can't. Yeah, the way it worked was, we used to rehearse at John Henry's. Yeah, because the management was down south.
He was also Scottish.
Yes. So they would come down, to the Big Smoke, whatever it was they used to call it, and so we used to kind of rehearse in John Henry's in London, in North London, and then our gear was stored in that area, and then they would go back up north, and then we wouldn't see them, and then that was kind of how it was based. But the creativity was done in Dunfermline in the early days.
Right.
We would get our gear sent up, me and Tony with the roadie who lived locally to us, a friend of ours from Simon Townsend's days, actually, a guy called Ron, and we would rehearse in a little place in just off Dunfermline, just by the Abbey, in a rehearsal room, and then we used to do demos up in Scotland and was it REL Studios? Yeah. And so we spent a lot of time up here with the creative stuff.
Yes.
The kind of rehearsals we did down south was only for the tour, where there was a proper full PA and everything. Yeah. But the creative stuff was done up here. So I was always coming up here, which I fell in love with Scotland, and I saw Scotland as a place, a bit like my dad coming from Poland to England, liberated. This kind of liberated me. The Scot guys liberated me musically because.
And I think also, that when you're coming up to, as you say, to Dunfermline or Dunfermline.
Dunfermline, yeah.
There used to be a building society, and it was called Dunfermline Building Society. Okay. And the advert was an American guy, and he used to go, "I bank with the Dunfermline Building Society."
It sounds like a shipping company, Dunfermline.
Dunfermline. And I remember that vividly. But so you're coming up. I mean, you're not exactly coming up to Glasgow or Edinburgh, with the greatest respect to Dunfermline, and so you've already had a taste of the industry. My God, you're working with a guy who's in the biggest band in the world. But this is different now. This is different. You're in a band now with a guy, Stuart Adamson, who has already had, at that point, maybe not international success, but big British success, with the Skids, the Working for the Yankee Dollar.
Yeah, I remember the records.
Oh, yeah. And I saw them, my God, I saw them when I was 13. So you're coming into this situation, I mean, do you have time to breathe?
It was a crazy period for me, I must admit, JJ. I didn't really go home much from this point. I didn't see my mum and dad much. I was kind of the plane had left the runway. I'm now in the air. And I'm going to keep myself in the air. You know.
So where's your first taste of success? Is it the UK?
Yeah, because we had the first single out, which I think it was Harvest Home, and it reached like 70 in the charts or something. But it got us in the press. Right. We had a good press agent and everything in Phonogram, Mariella, of course. The band was, we would traipse up and down the country before we recorded The Crossing, working the songs, getting them to be great for the record when we recorded The Crossing. But you know, we released Harvest Home, and I can't remember the second single now. Was it? Would you know what it was? No, I think it was. Maybe Fields of Fire. Yeah, it was Fields of Fire next, and then
Look Away. No.
And then in a Big Country, Look Away came later.
Right.
Yeah, so it was Fields of Fire next. So when Fields of Fire broke, and when we were in the charts, you know, and there was a proper video made. We made a video for Harvest Home, but it's a strange video. Never dance in your videos at the end. No. You know? And yeah, so things suddenly went from, you know, being a business, signing a contract, rehearsing, slogging up and down the country for a little bit, not for too long, to suddenly being in the studio with Steve Lillywhite. Right. You know, down at the Manor and down at Rack Studios.
Who's done everybody.
Yeah.
You know.
First of all, we did go to Air Studios with Chris Thomas, and we recorded the title track, The Crossing, that never made the record. Right. But Stuart didn't feel the energy was right, although I loved what Chris did. Right. But Steve came in and was completely, you know, oh hi there, you know, let's get your sound, and
come on,
you know, and he really encouraged a
unique
kind of individual sounds that would be different. Although I must say I do love Chris Thomas's work as well. I mean, his legendary status and what he's done is unbelievable. But Steve was incredibly good at keeping the enthusiasm and the direction going with incredible positivity, because he actually really loved what we all did. Yeah, you know. What was your question, JJ?
My question is, I'm asking you, did you have time to breathe?
No.
Did you have time? Okay, so you've got those 3 singles out.
We were rushed off our feet like I didn't see it coming. Right. I had never been in this situation before, so I hardly went home.
How are you handling it?
I'm pretty good. Yeah, because I'd made a decision not to be an aircraft engineer. Yeah. I wanted to be a professional, successful drummer in a band, you know, and have a successful band. So this was my life, and I wanted it to work. So I can tolerate anything you throw at me at that time. Yeah. I could live anywhere, I could sleep anywhere.
And how's the relationship in the band? Is it good?
Yeah, it's great. Everyone had partners or families, which I didn't, you know. Right. So I found it probably easier than the rest. There were problems where. And it kept raising itself, where we were away from home so much. Yeah. Because when you finish a tour, you've got to write the next album. Yeah. You know that yourself. And we had no time to think, because the amount of promotion we had to do, from interviews to TV, which we're not complaining about, it's all time consuming, and there's never enough time to. I mean, I never have enough time to have a family at this point at all. I didn't even think about it. I just thought, no, career. But the other guys, you know, they had partners, children, marriages. Yeah. And so they were spinning plates with that, you know, and it was having an effect on the stress for those things, and obviously missing the family, which you would do, of course.
So you break the UK.
Yeah, we break
the UK. Yeah. Where's your next territory?
Well, it was really UK, Ireland, because we had number 1 in Ireland in Look Away.
When do you get to go? Everybody wants the big ticket to go to America.
Well, we did we did go to America and play the Peppermint Lounge very early on, right? Where it was like the record company go and test the waters out there, and The Crossing has just been released, right? And we go and play in New York, the Peppermint Lounge. I think we did like 5 or 6 shows around the East Coast. Yeah. And we were received amazingly well. It's a little bit of a clubby event, wasn't a big thing, you know. The name hadn't really caught on out there. Yeah. We hadn't had it in a big country out there, which was going to be the thing that broke the band out there. Yeah. So there was a groundswell of interest in us, right. But there wasn't really any commercial success. We weren't on. We were on college radio, I think I remember that. Yeah. And certain radio stations that were looking for those kind of indie bands, and kind of that level. So we were creating waves out there. And in fact, Pete came to see us out there, you know, and that was a big thing when Pete would visit and come to the venue to see the band, because he was from our friends of me and Tony, and he supported us.
Incredible.
Yeah, and so we were kind of treading water in America, but kind of setting the tone for the next release, you know, just to get some groundwork at least underneath some foundations there. Europe was doing okay. We didn't do anything in France, as I talked to you about. Germany liked us.
Yeah.
Scandinavia liked us.
Yeah.
Holland liked us. You know.
So take me then from, so that we can encompass it all and put it all into, you know, a period. Take me through, you know, without brushing over anything. Take me from the point where Big Country are now doing really well. You know, you're doing well in the UK. Everything's happening. You know, America, you're starting to put your toe in the water. Pete Townsend showing up at the gigs, and you're starting to think. Take me from that period to you're now supporting David Bowie on the Glass Spider tour.
Yeah, it's a Glass Spider tour. I'm just trying to think what year that was, because I'm not great with timelines, because it blurs into a bit of a mess for me in my head.
But then you're not only doing that, you're not only supporting David Bowie, but you're supporting the Rolling Stones. Now.
What happened? We released in a Big Country, and that kind of puts us on the map globally, even to the point we're called a one-hit wonder in America. But we did have a hit, 2 Grammy nominations as well.
There you go.
Yeah, so we kind of cemented ourselves there, even to say we've arrived, even if we didn't, you know, I don't think they quite understood the music. But yeah, so we were now had The Crossing was successful. We then went to Polar Studios for the next album, which was kind of written pretty quickly, because we didn't have much time to do the next album. A lot of the songs were written on the road. It was sound check ideas were remembered, and we were doing more demos up in REL Studios here in Glasgow, and different studios around the country, down in Brize Norton, and who's it, Brize Norton? Somewhere down in Oxford, and we then went to the ABBA studio, Polar Studios, with Steve Lillywhite again, and we recorded Steel Town, same engineer, Will Gosling, and we were the first to record on digital tape, not digital, it was tape, 3M tape, and we had huge problems there, and we were in the same studios using the same microphones as ABBA. If you see the early recordings in the pink walls and stuff, you'll see it's the same studio, same desk, same microphones where they sang each side of the mic. Frida and Agnetha. I'd already worked with Frida by this point. Anyway, so we're working. We did the studio in Polar in Stockholm, which was great because you had the vibe of ABBA and everything, and they were superstars at that time. Still are, of course. And we had a number one out of that. You know, it went to number one. In 1986, which I never thought I would have, you know, number one record, a number one album, and I think it did. It not you would it not you two off the charts? I'm not sure. I think it possibly did. I don't know, but you know, it was an amazing thing to happen. I remember getting the call when I was just woken up at 6 a.m. by Ian saying, "Do you realise, you know, your album's at number one?" I went, "Oh right, okay." Oh really? I'm still sleepy, you know. And sort of then woke me up, you know. Really? Oh, I didn't really know how to react, you know, because it felt no different. It's just a number to me, but actually, it was the enormity of the thing was being number one was amazing.
Incredible. You know? So you crest that wave then. You've hit number one. The Crossing is doing incredibly well.
Steel Town is now number one.
Steel Town, sorry. And you so. You keep going and keep going and keep going. Take me to the point now where you're getting to a point now where the record company start to put a bit more pressure on you.
Yeah, that came after.
There seems to be more pressure on the band.
Yeah, Steve. The third album, the Seer was done with Robin Miller down at the power plant.
The blind fella.
The blind chap. Very nice chap. He'd done
George Michael.
Yeah, and Sade, you know.
That's right.
And he had a slightly different approach. Incredibly nice guy to work with.
I had a very, very brief meeting with Robin Miller. He came to see me one time when I was working with Tony Mortimer, with a view of working with us, but he wasn't keen on what we were doing, and and also he came to see this show, this kind of showcase thing, and we were really, really loud, and it was far too loud for him, and he just kind of
missed opportunity.
And I really admired him. I wasn't a big fan of Shadi and Riyadh, but I love George Michael. And I know he did some work with George Michael. But incredible producer.
He was a different way of working, you know. He was very meticulous, and he I guess, you know, what you lose in your eyesight, you gain in your ears, you know. And he was incredibly into the detail and the sonics of the detail, and you know, the sparkling.
So which album was this?
The Seer. And which produced Look Away, which we had a number one in Ireland. That was kind of an intermediate single, actually put out. And I think Wonderland was as well.
Great song.
So that was done as an intermediate single, Wonderland, to keep us active in the name there.
Yeah.
I can't remember the chart position. I know it was quite high this year, but it didn't reach the heady heights of number 1. But it was top 10, I think.
Yeah, brilliant.
And things were slowly changing. You know, the bands, constantly getting hammered about sounding the same.
This
even though
media,
yeah,
course,
and it does affect you in the end. It didn't affect me, but we were getting more and more where the reviews we were the darlings of the press, and then the honeymoon was over. Now they don't particularly like us, but a certain Steve Sutherland always liked us, and a few others. But I know it affected Stuart, and so we were trying new ideas and trying to get away from being this kind of overly Celtic bagpipe guitar sounding band,
which was, to me, was what made the band.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, you can't be yourself, can't you?
And I think that I want to touch briefly, because you don't want to skim over anything. But before we move on a little bit, I want to look at the whole Live Aid thing, where you were obviously invited to do the Live Aid thing, which is the biggest thing. Yeah. In the British music scene, and you guys played it. We
didn't play that. We sang at the end.
We sang at the end. Yeah.
There was a little bit.
You didn't play it?
There's a few theories. I mean, I was working with Roger Daltry at the time in Rack Studios, where the Big Country album was done with The Crossing.
As you do.
Yeah, and we always got a great drum sound there, and Alan Shatlock was producing that record, and I remember seeing Bob Geldof come in with B.A. Robinson into the studio. Yeah. And he was talking to... he was coming. He was talking to Mickey Most. Yeah. And then I spoke to Bob, and he said to me that he was doing a charity show, that he was putting a band together, putting bands on. Yeah. And it's going to be... a big
Did you
event.
think it was down at the Waltham Social
Club?
No.
I knew it was going to be a big thing because I called Ian. Yeah. And Ian kind of knew something about it.
Ian's your manager.
Yeah, Ian. Yeah. And then he said, leave it with me. It's something I will deal with. Right. And I know nothing more than that.
The rest is history.
The rest is history. I know the slots went incredibly quick. Yeah. But we managed to do a whole day of press and promotion, and come and sing at the end, Feed the World, which I still have the lyrics. And and I think my because I'd already been working with Midge at this time, and I think my pass, for some reason, I think I got Midge's pass and he got mine or something like that. I'd have to look now, but I know I got somebody else's pass. But I remember right at the end, Harvey Goldsmith came on and was dishing out for the big finale for Feed the World. Yeah. And I was watching The Who with Linda McCartney. Right. And in
America?
No, this is in Wembley Stadium.
Ah, okay.
And so. And I also had Janie Townsend to come along, Simon's wife. Right. She wanted to, because The Who were playing, and she was there, and we friends of the family through Simon, obviously. And I remember walking out on stage, and Harvey Goldsmith said to me, "Look, tall ones at the back, right? Arrow formation, tall ones at the back." And so I remember Stuart Copeland shouting over to me.
That real Jimmy Somerville out.
Yeah, and I saw the rest of my band members go pretty much to the front, which we hadn't played, and I suddenly thought, where are they going? Oh, they're gone. Well, it's chaos on stage. Yeah. So I'm now at the back with Linda McCartney on my right and Janie's on my left, and Stuart Copeland's just over there because we said hi because I'd already done something with him, and then we sang Feed the World, which was incredible. To be involved in that. Absolutely. It seemed very chaotic because it was a very chaotic backstage. It was very chaotic. What you saw is kind of slick. Yeah. But backstage, a bit like a fashion show where everyone's changing costumes. It's chaos, and you see the runway. It's all tiggity boom. But it was kind of crazy backstage, and the way we kind of ended it, suddenly ended like everyone on stage is Feed the World. We're running out of time for the broadcast, and get on there and do it. And so we kind of ended up singing it, which was a real thrill. And we'd also previously on the single of Did They Know It's Christmas, we're on the B side where it's just the music and you'll say who you are. Hi, I'm Mark Brzezicki from Big Country, Feed the World,
Oh,
so we got a message on the back. Yeah, we all did individually say our names. Yeah, so that was a real
thrill. And I think that all
I must say, it was a thrill to be involved in that. Even to the extent we did, and I'm grateful for that, and for the cause it was as well, obviously. And it was incredible occasion, incredible. It's one of those things, JJ, that I appreciate more now as time's gone by. But things were so crazy for me, they started to feel normal.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be complacent about that because I'm not that sort of person.
No, but it's not that they seem normal. They are normal.
Every day was when I look back was a bonkers day or something that I wouldn't think I would ever do.
I'm going to take you to
because you've experienced this yourself. You have crazy days with your success and stuff.
And a lot of those people you spoke about I've met.
Of course,
and it is. You don't have to be Arthur Brown to live in a crazy world.
No, true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that I don't see that as crazy at all. I see that as your normal.
It was my normal,
and that's absolutely fine because that's the world you live in, and that's the world that people would see as glamorous, and it absolutely is, and people would see absolutely intrigued, and so they should, but people don't see the difficulty, and I want to touch a wee bit on Stuart's difficulty in life and his mental health, because I suffer quite badly with my own mental health.
Right.
I have quite a few episodes in my own life with mental health, and it's not something that I try to escape. It's not something that I don't necessarily want to talk about. We don't need to delve into Stuart's private life.
No, I wouldn't really want to do that.
I know you don't, and I wouldn't ask you to do it. I just what I'm trying to establish is the fact that you've got all this normal, and we call it normal because it is normal.
It's what we do.
It's our normal, and in amongst all this normal, and in amongst all this, what maybe the general public conceive as the epitome of life of someone that's a superstar. For a lot of people, particularly in today's world, that think that world is the glamour of the world, and it's you're just peppered with all the beautiful things. In amongst all that, in amongst all those great big country songs, and in amongst an admirer of music and an admirer of the lyric and the way a song encapsulates a lyric and the way it's done, the way it's produced and weaved together with words and music. Stuart, to me personally, there was fantastic sentiment in his songs.
Very much so.
And they were very much almost autobiographical, if that's the wrong word. I'm not sure but it's a way of delving into someone that you don't know. To me, when you looked at Stuart as a lyricist, now I met Stuart a couple of times. I met you guys a couple of times. But to me, as if I look at Stuart as a lyricist, I can almost see his life unfold in some of the lyrics, which I'm sure some of the great big country fans and some of the admiration. What I'm trying to say is, in amongst all that fantastic stuff that was happening, you had someone there that was really suffering, someone there that was really finding difficulty in his life, which anyone else would think, how could he possibly not be doing well within himself? We now understand through mental health and through that Jack is firmly out of the box now. You know what I mean? With people like Robin Williams, with people that with the Kurt Cobains of this world, the more recent fatal tragedies, the drummer from Crowded House, forgive me for not remembering the chap's name, and I met him, and I suppose within the great structure of all those great songs that Stuart wrote, there was an essence of a man that was having some difficulty in his own life, and to me could be projected within his lyrics. As the years went on, Mark, did you want to step back from it all? Did you feel that it was all getting a bit too much?
No. It's interesting to talk about lyrics because I really reviewed Stuart's lyrics as poetry. Yeah. I saw it. I did, one thing I never did as a drummer, I do it more so now, and even more so working with you as I've got older. Yeah. I look at the lyrics a lot more, for many reasons, but lyrics to me were rhythms.
Yes.
I heard music very differently.
Yeah.
And when Stuart, it almost, because when I was learning to play the drums, I would only play drums that had predominant drumming on it, normally proggy stuff. And a lot of them were instrumentals. So I concentrated a lot on the rhythm. And when the lyrics were strong in a song, not only did I like the title of the song because of the message it had or whatever.
Yeah.
And I liked like Steel Town, working class, and it represented kind of, again, what you said, where Stuart was from, the steel industry closing down, the Margaret Thatcher era, and that being reflected in his brilliant storyteller and a great storyteller. And the way his if you looked at the lyrics now and didn't listen to the music, they all stand up as poetry.
Oh, absolutely.
So. But for me, when I was working the songs, my head's in a different space.
Yeah.
I'm not hearing his words as X, Y, Z or ABC. I'm hearing as phrasings. That's what I hear.
Yeah.
So what I want to do is I want to respect the song because I'm a song drummer, and I have to move around the lyrics. I don't want to be hammering when he's saying something delicate. And I don't need to know what he's saying. I just need to know the phrasing.
Of course.
And that's what I'm hearing automatically in my head. I'm not hearing the words.
Yeah.
I'm not reading the book.
Yeah.
I'm hearing the television on with a newsreader, but I'm not sure what he's saying. I just hear. So I'm learning that.
It's rhythm. Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
So from a very personal viewpoint, I didn't take much notice of what he was singing about, other than the fact when it came to interviews, I was like, here it comes, they're going to ask me about lyrical content. And I wasn't really focused on the lyrics, but I knew how much he was revered. And genuinely, when I used to look at his lyrics, because often we would generally write the music first, wherever we were, and Stuart would say, right, don't disturb me, I'm going to my room, and the next day I'm doing my thing. I'm writing the lyrics.
Brilliant.
And he would dedicate himself, he'd lock himself away in the room, would all go out for a curry or whatever. He wouldn't. He's still in his room. Yeah. He may be watching football, it doesn't matter. He still has got paperwork out, pens and his book and everything, and he's scribbling. And now and again, his scribbles are around and I'd read them and I can see the songs forming, crossed out things and stuff like you do. And
great storyteller.
And when I was reading them, I thought, blimey, it's like reading a book.
Yeah.
It's not even more than a song. It's more than a song. It's not I Love You Baby, which is nothing wrong in that.
Yeah, it's writing down pictures.
And like you said, moving forward, only in hindsight, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
And now I start to look or read things about what people quote his lyrics now and put. Was it a cry for help? Was this? Now I'm going, blimey. Some of it's actually there, and I didn't realise.
And why would
I wasn't hearing it, because I don't listen to lyrics to the intent where I want to hear the story sometimes, because when I'm involved, I tend to listen to it rhythmically, because that's where I want to find my space. And it's only recently, I would say in the last 5 years or so, that more and more I've taken notice of particularly what happened. Yeah. That I'm thinking, wow, we didn't see any signs at the time. Yeah. We were almost too busy to see them, and we saw them as really deep lyrics. Yeah. We always had comments that comments I regularly read about Stuart's lyrics was that it got me through a really bad phase in my life, and if it wasn't for your band and Stuart's lyrics, I wouldn't be here, or it got me through my dark days, and I can't thank you enough. That's been a common thread with some of Stuart's lyrics, as well as being very uplifting and very growing flowers in the desert and stuff like that. It's been he's had a positive stance as well, and a man with fire in his belly. Yeah. With protesting in a way about real people's lives being affected.
And even his titles and the album titles and how when I listen to someone like a young sort of Scottish singer-songwriter, Lewis Capaldi, and I listen to his big song where he talks about going under, and this time I hope there's someone to save me, and you're thinking, but then he has the opportunity now in 2021 to come out and say to a live audience, I'm really fucking struggling tonight. Yeah.
Well, times have changed where you can feel comfortable.
And I want you to help me. Yeah. I want people to come out and help me, and of course it's a time and a place, and my admiration, I've told you before, in the times that you and I have worked together, and particularly on some big country songs, when I listen to things like Chance, and I listen to that, the way that he weaved ding 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 ding, and you hear that, and you think, well, there's no way there's going to be attached to that is going to be, well, the rain came down, and you think, oh my goodness, he's married this almost signature Celtic, dancing plaid man with a deep rooted storyteller. It's almost like the ballerina meets the
It's an interesting thing you say that, because we used to hang out obviously in the studios when somebody's doing their bass. We'd be in the other room tinkling the piano or doing. Me and Bruce used to call it the think tank.
Yes.
And me and Stuart often went to the piano, like I was as a kid, with my brother on the other side.
Yeah.
And me and Stuart used to play chopsticks together just for fun.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was at one point before Chance where together we were going all on the black notes, dong 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 da da da, both together, playing together in that kind of sequence, which is where it came about really. With Stuart saying, I'm only going to hit the black notes, and when I was doing the bass note black notes, following up and following down, there's only one white note in there, which became the front end of that song, as far as I remember. But that's just through tinkering around. But he was, there's that creativity that Stuart's already got, that he's on the piano and he's finding melody and composition not on his guitar, and he was intrigued by the black notes that give you almost a Chinese or Japanese feel, dun 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 dun. It's got that kind of feel,
and he had that, and I think, listen, life moves on, and it has to move on, for us that still have the fortune and good days to walk the planet, and ultimately, you remember him with great favour, and you remember him, for all the things that he was, and not for the things that he wasn't, for the times that he couldn't, take the pain or couldn't hold the pain. And I, as an admirer and a bystander, could often feel his pain in his lyric. Right. I'm not trying to equate anything that I go through in life with anything that Stuart may have went through in his life, but what I can do is appreciate someone that I admired greatly as a songwriter, and someone that I admired greatly as a lyricist, with a great way of expressing himself. And you guys ultimately have to carry that you have to carry the candle, and you have to carry that flame on, and keep progressing, and keep playing as a band. And before we finish, and I could talk to you all night, and it's been absolutely riveting, I want you just to if you can, I think we've encapsulated a lot of your life, and I think we've touched very briefly on a wee bit of sadness in your career, and that's absolutely fine, and I'm glad we've done that, and I'm glad we've spoke about that. Tell me a wee bit about the fact that you reformed the band again, you reformed Big Country again, and you brought in Simon, this new fella who's singing. He's not new, but he's new to me, and you're now moving forward with that, and of course you're still playing and stuff, but as Mark Brzezicki, and I don't mean to not be as interested as what Big Country for the future may do. I'm talking to Mark Brzezicki, I'm not talking to Big Country. Tell me what you haven't done and what you would like to do. You'll forgive me for saying you're a man in your 60s now.
Sure.
You've played with the biggest bands in the world. You're good friends, with people that we only read about in magazines. You shared stages, and I'll have a snippet at your catalogue with Phil Collins and with Stuart Copeland and with Pete Townsend and with Gary Brooker, Procol Harum, songs that we grew up with, you skip the last fandango, and you see this video and Big Mark's there banging away in the drums, and then you go to the Prince's Trust and Phil Collins has got a drum kit set up, Mark Brzezicki's at oh my goodness, and then you go into the next thing and it's She Sells Sanctuary by the Cult, and there's Big Brzezicki banging away, and you look at all this and you look at it as a complete storybook, and you think, this man's achieved all the great dreams that Peter Brzezicki would have dreamt of for his son, would be so proud of, and he'll be the proudest man in heaven, you know, to be looking down for this wee immigrant boy, you know, that had nothing, you know, to come to a foreign country in England, and how in his wildest dreams could he ever believe that his son would be on the biggest stages in the world. And also appreciating all these other children for all the wonderful things that your brothers and sisters also did, you know, and your mum Kathleen would have been exactly the same. But just as a final question, to wrap this part of Mark Brzezicki's life, because there's lots more to go. You married a wonderful woman. She seems like a great girl. I've only spoke to her briefly on the phone. It's changed your life. You're sharing a bit of your life now in Nashville. So Nashville's getting the benefit of this young, gracious man from England. Maybe not as young as you used to be. You know, and you're married now to this wonderful woman who's got a great background and a great pedigree of European background and a mix of Latin America, and you're now back in England. Tell me, you know, what's a couple of your dreams now that you haven't done?
Well, I really feel we've got unfinished business. You know, it's such a tragedy what happened to Stuart. It was like losing a brother, because he was a brother. I spent more time with him and Bruce and Tony than I did my own family for many, many years. And I don't think you ever get over that. But you know, life goes on. You pick up the pieces, and for me, I'm very much my glass is half full, and I still have a vision. And my vision is we have unfinished business in America.
Right.
I always felt that, you know, even if it's not going to be the same as it could have been, I would still like to achieve, you know, some kind of touring and more so. I mean, I've achieved a lot of things. I never say I'm satisfied, because otherwise I wouldn't be motivated to get up.
You wouldn't get out your bed.
Yeah, so I'm always hungry for new horizons, and my new horizon, I've always had a love for America. And to go out to America with my beloved band Big Country, including the history that Stuart's got with us all the time, because we carry that with us, and his wonderful music and songs and lyrics, to have more recognition in America, and to be available to be seen, even if it's to be seen you know, as a band touring with the wonderful catalogue that we already have.
Of course.
Yeah, to allow people to open that book on Big Country and still be able to see it live, and to do that in America. Yeah,
no, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. And just lastly, you know, before we go, I mean, you've played on my album, and that's why you're here in Scotland. Not necessarily just for that Big Country played in Blair Athol, you know, but you came up and you've kindly played drums and done some vocals on my album, and I'm eternally grateful for that.
I'm grateful too.
And you were someone that I always wanted to after we worked together, you know, sadly after Stuart's passing, I came and worked with you guys, and I absolutely loved it, and I loved singing these songs, and particularly we were talking about it today, Ships, you know, and Look Away and all those songs, you know what I mean? It was
but I'm always blown away by an artist like yourself, JJ, and I mean it genuinely. When I get invited to play on a record, and for an artist that writes, it's so personal what you do, and I respect that 100%, that you're allowing somebody in to create more vibrations in your music, albeit from the drums, and it's an incredible thing to be asked, and I have so much respect for that I'm allowed to contribute to what your vision is, and that you chose me. It means a lot to me, and I respect that, and I'm very honoured to do it, and I'm humbled by that, because music is so special to everyone that writes, particularly somebody like yourself who sings beautifully and writes incredible, moving and emotional songs. For you to want me to be involved in that is very special to me.
Well, listen, Mark, I wish you all the best, and I do wish that, you know, for Big Country, and for Bruce and Simon and young Jamie, and I would love to see Tony getting back with you. I know you've got a great bass player. We have a great relationship.
I'd
love
Tony.
To see Tony, just because I love the original thing, and I love, and that's
who knows. We never say never, because
exactly,
you know,
I do wish you absolute, and I hope that you do get to, and I know you'll go out to play in America again, and you carry, as I say, you carry that candle on for your great friend Stuart, and for the music that you guys brought into my life and into a lot of people's lives. And I think a lot of people that will watch this will be really grateful for some of the things that you've revealed, and for some of the things that you've said. It really will be special to people, and I'm very grateful. You were patient with me. We had some technical difficulties. We would normally have a couple of microphones set up, but Mark, you're a big gentleman, and thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure,
it's been
JJ.
An absolute pleasure.
Likewise.
We'll fist pump.
Absolutely.
God bless you.
God bless you too. Thank you, JJ. Thank you.